Hello and welcome to Navigating the Hospitality Industry with Multiple Lenses. I am Karen Patriarca Elliott. I am an e-learning developer at FAIR. Today we have Kelsey Austin and Dr. Bridget Bordelon. And with that, ladies, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. This is two food allergy experts, multiple perspectives. I am co-presenting today with Dr. Bridget Bordelon, who I was actually paired with because we have very similar experiences, both in the food and beverage hospitality world and with our personal food allergy experiences. So thank you, FAIR, for pairing us together, because this is an awesome partnership that we're actually going to continue after this presentation. So this is Navigating the World of Food and Beverage and Travel Through Multiple Lenses. And we're excited to be talking to you all today. As Karen mentioned before, we're happy to answer any questions. We'll leave some time at the end, so please feel free to write in the chat, or you can ask at the end. So just a quick agenda for the day. We're going to introduce ourselves first, just so you know who's talking to you, what our background is, how food allergies impact our lives. Then we'll talk a little bit about the current state of the industry, just a quick hospitality overview and how the industry is at the moment. We'll go into some specific hotel policies. And then we'll talk a little bit about the mutual benefits, so as far as guests and businesses go, and then the mutual responsibilities, because it's definitely important to understand the business perspective, but also the guest, the allergy person's perspective, and kind of see how they have that little symbiotic relationship. Then we'll go a little bit more into hotel, corporate level and property level perspectives. Bridget and I both had the benefit of being able to chat with some people on property and on corporate levels. So we're excited to share that information with you today. And then we'll talk a little bit about our own personal experiences, and then just some general travel tips that we tend to give to people we know with allergies through our advocacy within the allergy community, and then small changes kind of on the business side that do make a world of difference for the allergy community in general. And then, of course, we'll leave some time for questions.
Hi, so thanks for introducing me, Kelsey. I'm Bridget Bordelon. And just to give you a little background about myself and how I have started this journey, I'm an associate professor in the Kabikoff School of Hotel, Restaurant, Tourism Administration at the University of New Orleans. So I'm in New Orleans and Kelsey is in New York right now. At the heart of this, I teach college students, undergraduate and graduate students, about travel and tourism and all things related. And I've been an avid traveler myself, and I have a passion for both travel, teaching, learning. So things changed for me rather suddenly. I had a daughter who is now 10, and she was diagnosed at about 12 months. Kind of in a scary situation of I didn't know much about food allergies, and she had her first reaction to hummus, and life-threatening. So that moment, 9 years ago, things changed for me. And rather than become completely, consumed with fear and anxiety, you go through the process. What I found myself doing was using my research skills to hone in on as much information as possible. And that transitioned me into really becoming an advocate and using my research skills in travel and tourism to inform what's working well and what's maybe missing, or what could change in terms of how to navigate travel, all things, accommodations, restaurants, attractions. So it's been a wonderful partnership for me, kind of marrying both interest and putting my research to use. And what I found also is an area I didn't think about, but bringing that skill back into the classroom. And at the end of the day, I kind of had this light bulb moment rather recently. I'm training our future hospitality students who will be working in, all of your hotels and restaurants and attractions, and going through life with more knowledge and skills and tools, I think really can empower the individual and also provide service. And at the end of the day, when we talk about hospitality, we're trying to meet or exceed the level of expectation of the guest. So for me, some of my pictures I have here, we have an industrial kitchen, and I make top 8 allergen cookies. If we're ever at any type of event, I realized, why are we not representing the allergy community? We need to have safe labeled cookies. So I get in there with the executive chef, and I've learned a lot. I'm a food allergy mom. I kind of see myself as that, proud label. And I know the slide to the right, the picture, that's me prepping for a trip. I'm always, thinking about what's happening. You see my brands of safe foods that I'm super interested in. I'm publishing in this area now. It is, I think, a life-changing moment for me where, all of this is coming together and I see this purpose. So I'm going to turn things over to Kelsey and let her give you a little background about herself and her journey.
Awesome. Thank you. So yes, as you mentioned before, hi, I am Kelsey. And again, I think that this partnership has been awesome with Bridget, and you'll see kind of how our stories align. And I'm kind of excited to take you through it today. So my name is Kelsey. I have a ton of food allergies. I was diagnosed when I was 2 years old, so I was very, very young. They were testing for some very serious other diseases. So when they learned that it was just a long laundry list of allergies, gluten, dairy, nuts, soy, shellfish, kiwis, bananas, raspberries, blackberries, other fruits, recently learned about oral allergy syndrome. So it is quite a fun list. But it was always looked at as a positive in my life, simply because allergies are livable and it just is a huge lifestyle change. So because of that, I became a huge foodie, as you can kind of tell by these 2 photos down at the bottom. I went, just for a funny anecdote, I went as Emerald Lagasse for Halloween from Food Network, BAM. 2 years in a row for Halloween, because I was that obsessed with the Food Network, being able to kind of cook, prepare my own allergy-friendly meals. And that's kind of what pushed me into the world of food and beverage to begin with. So kind of with that passion, I went to Cornell and I studied at the School of Hotel Administration, which was a really wonderful education to get. And then right from there, I went to work for Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts as a food and beverage manager. So with Four Seasons, I was able to work in Seattle, in Boston, San Diego, and San Francisco. So got to be part of kind of the allergy protocol on property and just working with allergy guests all the time, which was a really cool experience. I had the benefit of speaking at the FAIR Summit in 2019, the Contains Courage Summit over in DC. And I have recently switched over from working for Four Seasons and operations over to the more technical side of food and beverage management with a company called Avero that is much more kind of revenue management based, but we do connect to food and beverage point of sale systems. So definitely kept hospitality in the realm. I'm also an avid traveler. When I was in college, I went on a program called Semester at Sea, where it was a ship around the world. So got to see a lot of places and was able to do that with allergies, with a couple of the tips and tricks that we'll share a little bit later. And I've also just continued some allergy advocacy through my Instagram, Allergy Traveler, and as a spoken ambassador. So I love all things food and beverage, and really am an advocate for not letting allergies hold you back. But I also see it from the business perspective, just from all of my experience in the operations world. So being able to kind of look at it from those 2 perspectives is why, or those 4 perspectives here with Bridget, is why we're here today chatting with you. Bridget, you're on mute.
Thank you. Just to give an overview, a little bit of brief context, we are all familiar with the top 8 allergens. We like to look at the policy behind what happens and how guidelines are enforced or changing. So 2004 was the first time that the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act declared the top 8 allergens. And just so you know, these are the top 8 allergens in the United States. Moving forward next year, 2023, with the FASTER Act, thanks to FAIR for lobbying and pushing that through, sesame is declared the 9th allergen. and will be required labeling. That will be something to look forward to for those with sesame allergy, making things safer. Basically, top 8 allergens are FDA required packaging on food labels. What that means, of course, is that you have to identify on any label for food and beverage in the United States these top 8. There's other labels with may contain or process in a facility, and that's different, and that's optional, and that's a whole different presentation. But for today's purposes, making sure that we understand, although there is food packaging labeling required by law in the US, we don't see that same legal requirement if we transfer over to independent restaurants or into hospitality venues, attractions. All of the food allergy information is optional. So moving forward, this Labeling Consumer Protection Act, as I mentioned, is for labeled food. However, if something is in a container such as paper or a box, maybe for a sandwich, the same requirement does not apply. Labeling is not required in the United States. So if you are at a grocery store and there's a bakery and they put something, a baked good, in a little box container, there is not that same requirement. What that means is there's a potential for, an assumed risk can increase, and that same level of protection is not given. One more key piece, just in our kind of overview and context of food allergies for policy, is that making sure we understand that part of the Americans with Disability Act, 1990, has identified 3 components: allergies, asthma, and anaphylaxis as a disability. So if we're talking about accommodations and inclusion, this is something to really think about. Food allergy is also considered a silent disability. And what that means is, you wouldn't be able to just identify someone walking into your hotel property or your restaurant as a food allergy person. Looking at Kelsey, she has a multiple, amount of allergies, and, Kelsey is a beautiful, healthy, vibrant young woman. There's no way that you would know that about her. And so that makes this a little difficult. And that's where this comes from the guest, responsibility, what we really want to stress, not just the business side, but the guest to speak up and be clear. And we'll talk about that, as we move forward. So finally, we get to hotels, kind of our central point of today's discussion. And in terms of requirements, optional. There are allergy-friendly hotels. And what this means is that the hotel can offer rooms that might have a HEPA air purifier, maybe hypoallergenic pillows, special cleaning to try to reduce dust mites. Hyatt is a great example. The Hyatt Pure Room program can offer these type of rooms at different properties. Again, this is for environmental allergies. It might help with, preventing asthmatic symptoms or environmental distress. Again, no official policy legally for hotels to follow in terms of guidelines.
Awesome. So now we are going to move on just to talk a little bit about the mutual benefits and responsibilities that we kind of touched on in the very beginning. And this means that when we were talking about this, that guests and businesses kind of have an equal responsibility and get equal benefits from this kind of symbiotic relationship that I mentioned before. So jumping into those benefits first, when we talk about the guest benefits versus the business benefits, guest benefits of this relationship, it means that guests are able to travel and do things. It's providing safe accommodations, a safe place for someone to be able to put their head on a pillow at night and not wake up with their face swollen shut. Speaking from personal experience on that one. This is also just generally improving the quality of life of somebody who has allergies, allowing them to visit new places and travel. I've been able to travel because of a lot of these things, because of a lot of accommodations. And it really has kind of added more to the community, but also just made for a much better experience and a more well-rounded individual, I would say, just as far as people who can travel like that. Again, increasing travel opportunity for people who may not be able to, makes for a generally enjoyable experience. And then the big one that especially is becoming even bigger nowadays, just with the rise of social media, of blogs, of support groups online, is the general food allergy anxiety, which, I mean, I know that a lot of people are hearing about just generalized anxiety, but food allergy anxiety is definitely something that the majority of food allergy people experience. And being able to go to a place that at least eases that is really life-changing for a lot of people. So there are numerous guest benefits, but there are also business benefits as well. And most of those are financial. 32 million Americans are living with food allergies, which is a pretty significant amount. This is a large target market and a really, really big revenue opportunity. And this 32 million includes someone like me with a laundry list of allergies, maybe someone with one allergy, someone with any really array of allergies there. But it's a very, very large target market. What's also interesting and makes sense about allergy guests in general is that there is a huge sense of loyalty, of brand loyalty, especially. You saw from some of Bridget's pictures early on that the items that she packs when traveling, the items that I pack when traveling, are usually the same couple of brands, because those are the safe brands that we've built loyalty immediately. So generally providing that safe space, access to safe food, causes that repeat business and that customer loyalty that will really stick for a long period of time. So those are those benefits. I mean, definitely there is a mutual benefit of over here, but there also is a mutual responsibility. So I definitely want to touch on that as well. It is not just the responsibility of the business or the guest to make sure that there is a safe interaction here. It's really a two-part piece to make this work. So firstly, we'll look at those guest responsibilities. As a guest, I can definitely speak for myself. It is our job to communicate clearly in advance and during every single food and beverage related interaction. So that is, for example, going to a hotel, calling in advance, saying, I have these allergies. Please make sure my room is clean. Please make sure I have accommodations that I need. But also going to the restaurant on property and recommunicating all of that information. I can't expect to let a hotel know about my allergies and then go to the restaurant and assume I can eat just because. It is my job to communicate clearly and in advance. It's also the guest's responsibility to carry medication, carry epinephrine, antihistamines, and also to have that emergency plan in place, whether that's written down in a bag or with the people that they're with, maybe friends or family. Having the medication and the just in case plan is just as important as the communication piece. Next, we can also talk about reading labels, researching menus, making sure that anything, anywhere you sit down, anywhere you are purchasing food from, you know that you'll be able to have, or and you'll do your research. This is also incredibly important. Next, being comfortable asking questions and making sure that the food is safe. Now, this definitely goes along with that food allergy anxiety piece, and you can definitely see how this would cause allergy anxiety, especially amongst younger people who are still learning to advocate for themselves. But being able to ask questions and make sure that nothing goes into your mouth, nothing goes onto your skin, that you are not 100% certain is safe, is really important and is a guest responsibility. What I do and what I recommend for the people that I mentor and in all the advocacy work that I do is to make sure that I kind of have the 5 senses rule, and I examine food after it's been delivered. I look at it, I smell it, I touch it sometimes, depending, to make sure that I trust my own intuition, that I'm able to look at these items, make sure that they're safe before I go ahead and eat anything. Again, that's me taking the responsibility for my own safety here. And then lastly, I know a lot of allergy people do this, some do not. I do this especially when traveling, especially when there is a language barrier in place, to carry a chef card with stated allergens. And this is to be able to hand a tangible piece of paper to a server, to a chef, to a manager, and say, these are my allergies. These are the specifications within those allergies. Please make sure I'm eating safely. You can keep this card. This is all yours. So it's not only the verbal confirmation, but also the written confirmation as well. Those are all ways that the guest can take responsibility for this. Now, the business is also responsible, but again, it's a two-part puzzle. So as far as the business responsibility goes, it's important to confirm allergens in writing, whether that's in the case of accepting the chef card and passing it along, that's definitely considered in writing, whether that's putting that into a point of sale system. I know a lot of restaurants and businesses are creating buttons for gluten allergy, dairy allergy, all allergies have buttons, and those are put into the system and they get rung in right through the kitchen. That definitely counts. Whether that's a server just writing down the allergens, handing them to the kitchen, that works as well. Also, researching safe meals in advance. If, for example, I am working at a hotel and I know that an allergy guest is coming to stay, as the chef, as the manager, being able to have a couple meals or a couple food items in mind that I know we can make and do for them is important. Being able to offer that allergy safe option. That doesn't have to be a 20-item menu of items this person can have, maybe 2 or 3 items to say, hey, this is what we can make for you, but I can assure you it will be safe. Also, just with those food allergy protocol, making sure to use separate cooking utensils, a separate pot, a separate spoon, maybe running it through the dish machine a couple extra times to make sure it's extra safe, all of those pieces. And then having guidelines on cross contact. I know that a lot of kitchen teams are aware of this, but making the front of house team aware as well. This definitely goes along with having trained staff on property. I know that a lot of restaurants and establishments have something called pre-shift where they gather before the entire shift, they review the reservations, being able to review allergens as well and say, hey, just be extra aware of the cross contact on this one, wear gloves when you deliver the dish. Small things like that definitely make a big difference. And the same thing kind of with that pre-shift idea, emphasizing the severity amongst the team, especially when you know for sure there is an allergy guest staying there. And then another important one that I know is very, very difficult for hospitality people in general. I know most of us are pretty smiley and we do not like to say no. This is one where you can say no. This is a safety issue. This is a medical issue. As Bridget was mentioning, this is a silent disability. This is something that is life altering if something goes wrong. So you can be okay to say no if the kitchen is unable to accommodate. And that's really important to feel comfortable doing. And then lastly, confirming allergies upon meal delivery. Speaking from myself and most allergy people I know, confirming when a plate is put in front of you that it is the allergy plate or this is the dairy-free one, just something like that makes a very, very big difference. Because if something is not said, I can speak for myself again, I'm likely to flag a server down, stand up for myself and double check that it's safe anyway. So it's helpful just to have the couple words mentioned as the dish is delivered. Now we're going to move on to more of the business perspective here. So Bridget and I, just with our roles, we have had the benefit of being able to speak with a lot of property level and corporate level food and beverage managers, chefs, people in the industry who know what they're talking about here. So we're just going to share some of the information that we got from that. So one of those people I had the benefit of speaking to is the corporate executive chef from Omni Hotels and Resorts, David Harker. He is absolutely awesome and is a huge advocate for the allergy community. He does a lot within with allergies within the Omni organization, but also externally, which I think is super cool. And this is a quote that actually really stuck out to me. We spoke on the phone for about an hour. He was really generous with his time, but this was definitely the quote that stuck out to me. And it is, when I'm interviewing chefs for different positions in the brand, I dig a little deeper into what they know and understand about lifestyle eating, modern diets, food restrictions, what the major food and environmental allergens are relating to food, and how it impacts their cooking. They need to be able to articulate all of these points. Now, hearing this from somebody who oversees 197 businesses and is doing the hiring for the kitchens for all of those is huge. And it also just shows where the industry is heading, which is really refreshing and rewarding to hear as an allergy nerd myself. we also spoke specifically about kind of where the food and beverage world is heading. You'll notice that he didn't necessarily mention food allergies that many times. It was mostly about lifestyle eating, modern diets, food restrictions, because this isn't just about food allergies. This is about everything. I would say when we go to restaurants nowadays, a lot of menus are labeled, even though they're not required to be, whether that's a vegan label, vegetarian label, gluten-free, simply again, because that's where the trend is heading. There are no requirements that say that establishments need to do this. Some other pieces that we spoke about, again, just where he sees the industry heading and where he thinks that it would be beneficial. Firstly, putting allergy steps of service into standard operating procedure. This is especially helpful for big corporate hotel groups to be able to have those standard operating procedures, to have that brand mentality. The same way that, I mean, a box of Enjoy Life cookies in any state will be a box of Enjoy Life cookies and will make me happy and be able to eat it, and I know I will. Having that same consistency among hotel brands is awesome, and it's definitely where the world is heading, hopefully. Next, having transparency and communication amongst the team and guests. So having that transparency of, okay, this is what's going on in the kitchen, but being able to communicate that with guests as well and being open about it. So that kind of does go along with the being able to say no, but also being able to say, hey, we do use gluten in the kitchen. So we say this item is gluten-friendly, not gluten-free, and then allow the guests to be able to make that decision on their own. That's kind of how we bring back into that mutual responsibility and mutual benefit piece of this, because it is a mutual process. Then going into just including allergy notifications on the menu. I did touch on that a little bit, but that's definitely where he sees the F&B world going, and I am all for it. And then lastly, requiring allergy trainings for all F&B employees. This is something that I know there are some states that do require it. Bridget spoke a little bit about ServSafe and having that certification. There's a specific ServSafe allergy certification that I know Bridget and I both have, but there's also just a section within the ServSafe certification that is about allergies. And that definitely touches on it, and is nice that that a lot of people who have that training know that information. So that was my conversation with David Harker. It was wonderful. But now we're going to go ahead and chat about some property level perspective and some of the research that that Bridget's been doing as well.
Thank you, Kelsey. This is basically a pilot project. We are planning to expand, but we really wanted to get a national perspective from managers, staff, chefs, food and beverage, catering, all things hotel in the United States, hotels with different locations, different size, different classification, and really come up with some perspectives of what they feel is working, what they maybe feel could be improved, and looking at some potential policy to reduce risk. So I'm just sharing a little bit of our kind of pilot, which is a couple of responses to let you hear from property level. When Kelsey was talking about more the corporate, this is looking at individual properties spread out throughout the United States. So I'm just sharing a brief for time constraints, just a little bit, but we will definitely be finishing and completing this research, so you can check it out with us later, of course, for the full report. So just touching base, asking, is there a top 8 for now allergen-free food available for purchase at the hotel? And when we're looking at this, basically we got about 3/4 of the respondents saying, yes, there is something available, but we also see that there's about 1/3 that there's not a top 8 allergen-free food available at the property level. So for us, the takeaway is, that's pretty good, but in terms of improvement, there are some recommendations we could see about adding, like Kelsey mentioned, when she has a Enjoy Life brand or Made Good brand, access to that, it makes her know she's safe. So we could see that as an improvement. So we were interested in capturing the process from, notifying a hotel or an attraction, it could be, but in this case, specific property, that a guest has an allergen, to what are the next steps? What happens when that person has information? And we've got a lot of variation, and I'm just sharing 3 perspectives here. And, maybe you can identify which perspective you like the best. We have our opinions. So this is basically, we notify the guest of which items have any of their food allergens and immediately notify staff to make sure they are aware and change gloves when making the order. This we like because they're obviously recognizing cross contact. They're also emphasizing transparency and communication. Another response we received, we notify the culinary staff to assist with the guest request. Good. We might want to see a little bit more in terms of the process and specific steps. And our final response for this example, the kitchen makes a note and will prepare a special plate for the specific needs of the guest or client. We also create a profile for the guest, including his or her allergies. So of these 3, maybe you're thinking which one you resonate with. I'll share, Kelsey, in my opinion, we like the last response because, again, transparency is there, communication, and also having that profile. And Kelsey talked about having either, a verbal or preferably written record that you're communicating. Again, this reduces risk and increases the satisfaction and safety of the guest. So looking at which areas need a little improvement, this is the perspective from the hotel. Again, looking at a range of positions. Basically, 37.5% of respondents feel that they could do a little more with training. And that's something very simple to work with. Maybe that's a, serve safe food allergen program online, very simple to complete. Looking at printed statements for food allergy menus, that resonates with our corporate chef, of course, wanting to see more printed information. On-site food choices, 12.5% would like to see a little bit more in terms of maybe some packaged safe food that's labeled. And then another, quarter, 25% look at having a food allergy protocol plan for managers. We really like that because that, again, goes with, consistency and having a process. So having from, guests identifying, self-selecting as having a food allergen, and there could be maybe a 3 or 4 step program in terms of what happens next. And that could be consistent across all hotel properties. So in conclusion, we feel good about what hotels are doing. We are optimistic. There are some service gaps in terms of fact finding. We got a lot of variation. Sometimes managers and directors are at a loss of where to get official information. That's something that could be improved. Also, there's a lot of variation in terms of up-to-date laws or knowing what state requires food servers to have the Serve Safe Allergen test, protocol. What are the requirements? So those are things that really could be streamlined. And finally, how best to communicate with food allergy guests. We mentioned this as a silent disability. And sometimes there can be a perceived stigma and not knowing how to actually interact. We want to tell you from both the guest side with food allergies and also the operations and the experience side, it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to not know the answers, but to be really clear and transparent that you are willing to find an answer is important. But the food allergy person feels more comfortable when you interact, communicate, and ask questions, and it's okay to do so. We'd love to share references and resources with hotels. Those that are searching for information, you can go on FAIR, you can go on Spoken, you can go to the National Restaurant Association, the CDC, et cetera. So we'd like to provide a list of go-tos for hotel properties. Again, this is part of a large survey. This is just a little snapshot, but we felt that it was important to give you a little preview of some of the information that we're gaining from the hotel side.
Definitely. So from here, we're going to review just some tips and tricks that we recommend for both allergy people and then for businesses who are accommodating allergy people. And these travel tips are ones that I offer to all allergy people that I speak to. And they're actually pretty simple to do. First, chef cards. I know I mentioned them before. I use these a lot, especially when traveling to places that don't speak English. Really helpful to be able for translation, one, but again, for having that paper copy to hand to somebody. Good to make sure that you can eat safely. Next, medical documentation for prescriptions or for any medication. Firstly, so it doesn't get taken by any sort of airport security, but also if something does happen and you're in medical care, for them to be able to see what you're on. Next, bringing safe snacks. I know that we touched on this several times so far, but this is really important when it comes to traveling. I just went on a trip to Ireland and Scotland, and even though they speak English there and they have phenomenal allergy policies at all of their places, I probably brought 4 days worth of food in the form of snacks in my bag. I shoved them into my shoes, into all of the crevices in my suitcase to make sure that just in case I heard the words no from an establishment, which is completely understandable if they choose to do that, I have enough food to get me through. Next, just being able to research some grocery stores, restaurants ahead of time to kind of avoid hearing those words, no. But yes, definitely doing research is important. And then lastly, taking local climate into consideration. And this is the case for seasonal outdoor allergies, but also for epinephrine, EpiPen storage, to make sure that if you're traveling somewhere really hot or really cold, that your epinephrine is safe and it's not going to be denatured in any way, is really important to have. We've just included this allergy alert little card, just an example of what some of them look like. There are some businesses that create these for people. Some people also just kind of print out their own little business cards. I prefer to handwrite mine the occasion that I need to. But this is just an example and a really good example at that.
And just kind of wrapping this up into some of the simple changes or simple steps that can make a food allergy person feel so much better. We've talked about this, but just in summary, clear and consistent communication. And that's between guests and management or team leaders or chef or anyone that you are in a contact with. Having options, we just want to say we're all talking about top 8, but again, January 2023, we are moving to top 9. Remember sesame, which is a very elusive allergen. It's one that I deal with my daughter. The labeling is very, very difficult right now. That will be moving into law required by the FDA on packaged food. So maybe get ahead of it, not just think top 8, maybe start thinking, okay, top 9. Also having a point of contact at the property who is considered the go-to food allergy person. So someone on staff who has information and knowledge, and that person can be a mentor or a team leader for other staff members. Again, sharing knowledge, education, and being able to ask questions. So that point person is really important. Having a mini refrigerator or a little microwave in the room. And it would be great if it was just upon stating in a profile that there are allergens, if the hotel could do that, but, at least working with the guest if requested, making sure that, clean equipment is put into the guest room. Requiring training for staff, even though only 2 states in the United States require servers right now to have the serve safe food allergen, 48 states do not. We'd love to see that. Imagine if servers in the hotel restaurant were trained. That would really just, I think, benefit everyone in the entire venue. Finally, understanding high-risk areas. With COVID-19, we talked a lot about virus and germ reduction. Sometimes things that are beneficial in general also stem to benefit food allergy people. So maybe doing a little spot cleaning if there are some, shelled nuts or identifying maybe if the bar area has mixed nuts in the sports bar, maybe the front desk could say, oh, wait, you might want to check out a different restaurant or eat at a different table. Just be mindful that this is something you could encounter. Knowing what to expect really allows the participant to anticipate and then make an informed choice of what that individual is comfortable with. It's not one size fits all. Every person in the food allergy community has a lot of variation in terms of risk, safety, what they're willing to do, but allowing the guest, providing information and allowing the individual to make that choice, we really believe is extremely valuable.
Great. And now we're just going to transition, as we've spoken a bit kind of about our experience and our recommendations from the more industry, hotel, food and beverage side. We're going to talk a little bit about our own personal experiences. Bridget and I both have, we have the industry experience. We both know what an industrial kitchen looks like and what it's like to work in that. And we also have our personal experience with allergies. So we thought it would be a cool opportunity just to share our own personal experiences, and then allow some time for some questions. So I will begin just sharing a couple more fun photos of young Kelsey. Now I share these because these pictures were actually taken at Disney. And I was 4 years old here. You'll notice that in the center, or the picture up at the top, I'm wearing this tiny little fanny pack that's probably bigger than my entire torso. And it's funny because from this trip, I only have photos with the chefs. There are no pictures of me with any Disney character, only the chefs, because I was such a curious and excitable little 4-year-old who was really interested in food and the Food Network and what was going into ingredients and making sure that I could eat safely. I found the whole process really, really cool and exciting. I still do to this day, which kind of brought me where we are now. But I think it's fun to see how a small act, an act of kindness, an act of someone doing their job, but taking a little bit of a step to do a tiny bit more than they normally would, can make such an impact on a person. Now, these chefs, I don't remember their names. They probably are retired at this point, but the fact that they made such an impact on young, oddly dressed Kelsey with my 2 different colored socks on, and brought me into an industry that they clearly love, is just a huge, huge impact. One thing that I do recommend just in general to most of my allergy people, that saying the words thank you really do go a long, long way. Coming from the allergy perspective and the back of house perspective, hearing the words thank you kind of make it worth it, and doing that kind of above and beyond work that it sometimes does take to accommodate someone with allergies is worth it if somebody is appreciative. Now, my background is from 4 Seasons. The entire value system and motto is the golden rule: treat others the way you would like to be treated. And having that mindset when it came to dealing with guests, whether they were allergy guests or not allergy guests, is incredibly important. I do have just some photos here at the bottom that were from my very recent trip to Ireland and Scotland. And this is kind of just an image of kind of where the allergy world is hopefully heading, especially after that conversation with David. They do an incredible job with allergy labeling on all packaged items and in restaurants and bakeries. The image on the left here, this allergy list, is actually from a restaurant. And not only do they have a numerical system for labeling allergies, this is in Ireland, but they also explain what each thing is and what's included in that, which I just thought was awesome. And then this one on the right was actually just from a bakery. So having that information, they even went past top 9. There's celery in there. There's sulfur dioxide. This is just really cool, great information to have. And I've never had such an easy time traveling. And moving on to the traveling portion, I've been to quite a few places. I'm really lucky that I've been able to do that. Most of this is from that trip on Semester at Sea, where I was able to travel around the world. And part of this was because I made a lot of friends on the ship who were able to translate my allergy card into the languages of the places where we were. And I was able to eat safely. You can see that, I mean, here on the left-hand side is me lovingly looking at a cookie. This is on the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. This is from the trip from last week. I'm also in India eating a dosa for breakfast here. I am in Japan eating roasted sweet potatoes with a honey glaze on the street in Japan. And then I'm eating pho in Vietnam. So having allergies does not necessarily mean you have to eat boring steamed chicken and broccoli all the time, but it sometimes does. But hopefully what we've learned from this and what we've learned from kind of understanding this mutual responsibility, mutual benefit piece is that it's worth it for all parties involved, as you can see by the giant smile on my face in all of these photos. And I'm sure that we will see some similar photos in Bridget's slides that are to come.
Great. So this is a picture from a hotel in California just a couple weeks ago. And I just want to give an example of like a communication kind of error. And this was on my part. And as a food allergy mom, we don't make mistakes. So, you know, this was a little bit of a hiccup for us. We're traveling and typically in a profile, I indicate allergens and that we need access to a mini fridge and just a little microwave. And I forgot to do it that time. Something just forgot. So we arrived on property and my daughter, you know, is 10 years old and there's a lot of anxiety, realizing, oh gosh, I forgot to do this. What's going to happen next? The front desk was very, very nice. And they said, well, absolutely. You can use our microwave, you know, in the lobby. Here it is. And I said, look, we can't use a communal microwave because there could be other ingredients in there and we really can't control that. And so, of course, you know, a manager was able to acquire somehow another microwave, clean it, bring it to our room within about an hour. My daughter's anxiety dropped, mine dropped, and we made sure to give that special absolute thank you and a follow-up write-up thank you to that manager. But what it showed me a couple of things was, you know, one, if you really take the time to explain the reasoning of why and how you need something, usually someone wants to help. And then from the other perspective, because I'm always looking at it from different lenses of what I do, from the, you know, operations, research, or hospitality side, the manager told me, oh, wow, I had not thought about something like sharing, you know, cross contact or someone else's food they're heating up could potentially cause a problem for your daughter. So, you know, this was one of those takeaways where it gives a lot of empowerment, a lot of knowledge from both sides. And, you know, afterwards, I was thinking, how would we have navigated 4 days, you know, on a trip without having that type of information? So this was a really good learning moment. And to teach that to my daughter, who will one day, you know, be making her own travel decisions. And just a quick follow-up slide. Kelsey mentioned brand loyalty with the allergy community. I cannot emphasize this enough. Chipotle offers ingredients that are safe for my daughter's allergies. We know this, it's confirmed. She does research prior to our trip. You can see us together with our safe brands we pack, our research. Knowing that there's a Chipotle nearby gives her that sense that, you know, she is safe. She's currently navigating other safe spots, and this will be a consumer for life with this brand. You know, safety builds the credibility and the awareness and the guest loyalty. So getting from both perspectives, this is something that is invaluable.
Thank you both so much. So this was so awesome. We have gone over just a little bit, and this is our last session for the day, but no worries. Everything was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Definitely didn't want to cut anybody off. Thank you guys both so much. This is our last session, and we hope that you guys will come back. And here is everybody, Kelsey and Dr. Bordelon's social media handles. So make sure you grab those. And we did put a lot of information in the chat box. So if you haven't looked at that, look at that before we shut this out. Otherwise, we will see everybody back tomorrow. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.